The bank was busy that morning, the usual crowd of people waiting in line, tapping their feet impatiently, checking their watches. Among them stood a woman in simple clothes, clean but not fancy, the kind of outfit that didn't draw attention. She held a small bag in her hands, her fingers tight around the strap as she waited her turn. When she finally reached the counter, the teller, a young man with a sharp suit and an even sharper attitude, barely glanced at her. "Next," he said, his tone bored. The woman stepped forward and placed the bag on the counter. "I'd like to deposit this, please," she said softly. The teller peeked inside the bag and his lips curled into a smirk. It was full of coins, old, tarnished, the kind people usually tossed into jars at home. He let out a quiet laugh, shaking his head. "Seriously? You brought us this?" A few people in line snickered. The woman's cheeks flushed, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes. It's money. I'd like to deposit it." The teller sighed dramatically, as if she'd asked him to count every grain of sand on a beach. "This is going to take forever. Don't you have real money? Like bills?" The woman didn't respond, just stood there, waiting. The teller rolled his eyes and dumped the coins onto the counter with a loud clatter, making a show of counting them slowly, loudly, like it was the biggest inconvenience of his life. Behind her, the line grew restless. Someone muttered, "Hurry up." Another person chuckled. The woman kept her head down, her fingers now gripping the edge of the counter. Then, the bank doors swung open. A man walked in, tall, dressed in a sleek black suit that screamed money. His presence was like a wave. Suddenly, the air in the room shifted. People turned. The whispers started. Because this wasn't just any man. This was him. The billionaire. The one whose face was on magazines, whose name was whispered in business circles like a legend. And right now, his sharp eyes were locked onto one person, the woman at the counter. The teller, still counting coins with exaggerated slowness, hadn't noticed yet. He sighed again, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You know, we have better things to do than count your pocket change." The woman opened her mouth to respond, but then a deep, calm voice cut through the room. "Is there a problem here?" The teller froze. Slowly, he turned, and his face went white. Because standing right behind the woman was the billionaire. And he was looking at her like she was the most important person in the world. The woman turned, her eyes lighting up. "You're early," she said softly. The billionaire smiled, a warm, private smile, before his gaze flicked back to the teller. His voice was polite, but there was steel underneath. "I asked if there was a problem." The teller's mouth opened, then closed. The entire bank had gone silent. No one was laughing now. The silence in the bank was so thick you could hear a pin drop. The teller's fingers trembled slightly as they hovered over the scattered coins. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The billionaire didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The quiet intensity in his eyes was enough. "I believe my wife asked you to deposit this money," he said, his tone smooth but firm. "Wife." The word echoed in the room. The teller's face drained of color. The snickering customers in line suddenly found the floor very interesting. The woman, now revealed to be the billionaire's wife, gave her husband a small, almost apologetic smile. "It's okay," she murmured. "I don't mind waiting." But the billionaire did mind. Before he could say another word, the bank manager, a middle-aged man with a nervous sweat already forming on his forehead, rushed over, nearly tripping in his haste. Mr. Reynolds. What an honor. We had no idea." The billionaire held up a hand, cutting him off. His eyes never left the teller. "Do you always treat customers like this?" The teller swallowed hard. I didn't realize." "That's the problem," the billionaire said calmly. "You shouldn't need to realize who someone is to treat them with respect. The manager's face twisted in panic. He shot a glare at the teller before turning back to the billionaire with a forced smile. "Sir, please, let's resolve this in my office. We deeply apologize for any inconvenience." The billionaire glanced at his wife, silently asking what she wanted. She gave a tiny shrug, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, amusement, maybe, or quiet satisfaction. He turned back to the manager. "No need for offices. Just do what my wife originally asked. Deposit the money." The manager didn't hesitate. He snatched up the coins himself, hands moving in a blur as he counted. "Right away, sir." "Immediately." The billionaire's wife watched, her expression unreadable. The coins weren't just spare change, they meant something to her. Years of saving, little by little, for reasons no one in this bank could possibly understand. As the manager fumbled, the billionaire leaned closer to his wife. "You could have told them who you were," he murmured, a hint of amusement in his voice. She smirked. "And miss this? Never." The customers in line were whispering now, phones subtly raised to record the scene. The once smug teller looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor. Then, just as the manager finished counting, the billionaire did something no one expected. He turned to the crowd and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "While we're here, let's open a new account." The manager blinked. A new account?" The billionaire smiled. "Yes. One with a very large deposit." A hush fell over the room. Because when a billionaire says, very large, it's never just money. It's a statement. The bank manager's hands were sweating so badly he almost dropped the pen he was holding. "Oh, of course, Mr. Reynolds. Whatever you need." His voice cracked slightly, his eyes darting between the billionaire and his quietly smiling wife. The billionaire pulled out a chair for his wife before sitting beside her. The entire bank had become a theater, and every customer was now an audience member, watching in stunned silence. Even the security guard had stopped his usual bored pacing to stare. The manager snapped his fingers at a junior employee. "Get Mr. Reynolds the private client forms." "No, wait, the platinum forms." He turned back with an overeager grin. "And perhaps some champagne? Coffee? Anything at all?" The billionaire waved it off. "Just the paperwork." His wife, however, tilted her head. "Actually, tea would be nice." The manager nearly tripped over himself rushing to comply. As they waited, the billionaire leaned toward his wife, his voice low. "You're enjoying this a little too much." She hid a smile behind her hand. "Maybe." Meanwhile, the teller who had mocked her earlier was still frozen behind the counter, his face pale. He kept opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water, as if trying to figure out how to apologize without making things worse. The manager returned with the tea, served in the bank's finest china, the kind usually reserved for visiting executives, and a stack of forms. The billionaire took them without a word and began filling them out with quick, precise strokes. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The manager hesitantly cleared his throat. "And, how much were you looking to deposit today, sir?" The billionaire didn't even glance up. 50 million. A gasp rippled through the bank. Someone in line dropped their phone. The manager's jaw actually fell open. But the billionaire's wife simply sipped her tea, her expression serene. The manager stammered, "50 million? As in, dollars?" The billionaire finally looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Unless you'd prefer it in coins?" The joke landed like a grenade. The manager let out a nervous laugh that sounded more like a squeak. The teller who had mocked the coins looked like he might pass out. Then, in the middle of the stunned silence, the billionaire's wife spoke up. "Actually," she said, setting down her teacup, "there's one more thing." Every head turned toward her. She reached into her bag and pulled out a single, worn-looking coin, older than the rest, with edges smoothed by time. She placed it gently on the table. "This one," she said softly, "isn't for the account." The billionaire looked at it, and for the first time since walking into the bank, his calm mask flickered. He recognized it. Because that coin had a story. And it was far more valuable than $50 million. The air in the bank grew heavier as all eyes locked onto that single, worn coin resting on the table. The billionaire reached out slowly, his fingers hovering over it like it might disappear if he touched it too quickly. His usual confidence wavered, just for a second, but his wife saw it. She always did. The manager, still scrambling to process the $50 million deposit, blinked at the coin. "I don't understand. Is this a collectible? Should we appraise?" "No," the billionaire said, his voice quieter now. "This one stays with us." His wife smiled, but there was something bittersweet in it. She turned the coin between her fingers, the metal catching the light. "Remember?" And just like that, the billionaire wasn't in a bank anymore. 10 years earlier. The city was colder back then. He remembered it in flashes, the cramped apartment with the leaky faucet, the way his breath fogged in the air because the heater kept cutting out. He was nobody then. Just a guy with big ideas and empty pockets. And her. She was the only one who believed in him. Even when he came home with another failed business pitch, another rejection, she'd just smile and say, "Next time." One night, after a particularly brutal setback, he sat at their rickety kitchen table, head in his hands. "Maybe this is it," he muttered. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." She didn't argue. Didn't give him a pep talk. Instead, she reached into her pocket and slid a single coin across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "Everything we have left," she said simply. He picked it up. A single dollar coin. That was it. Their last dollar. She leaned forward. "So. What are we gonna do with it?" He stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." Her eyes never left his. "Bet it on yourself one more time. Or we spend it on dinner and call it quits. Your choice." He turned that coin over and over in his hand, feeling the weight of it. Of her faith in him. That night, they went hungry. The next morning, he used that last dollar to take the subway across town to a meeting no one thought would matter. It changed everything. Back in the bank. The billionaire's throat tightened as he pulled himself back to the present. His wife was still holding that same coin, her thumb brushing over its surface like an old friend. The manager, completely lost, shifted awkwardly. "Sir? Should I proceed with the transfer?" The billionaire didn't answer right away. He looked around, at the gawking customers, the panicked staff, the teller who'd sneered at a bag of coins without realizing they represented a lifetime of struggle and loyalty. Then he did something no one expected. He stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and held out his hand to his wife. "Let's go." She tilted her head. "What about the account?" He smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "I changed my mind." The manager made a strangled noise. But the 50 million. "We'll go to a bank that treats every customer like they might be holding the most important coin of their life," the billionaire said, his voice carrying across the room. Then, softer, just to his wife, "Besides, I think we have somewhere better to be." She knew exactly what he meant. As they walked toward the door, the once smug teller finally found his voice. "Wait. I'm sorry, I didn't." The billionaire paused, half turning. "Not to me." The message was clear. His wife hesitated, then walked back to the counter. She didn't glare. Didn't lecture. Just placed the old coin in the teller's shaking hand and closed his fingers around it. "Next time," she said gently, "ask about the story before you judge the money." Then they left, not in a rush of anger, but in quiet understanding, the weight of that single coin lingering in the air behind them. Outside, the sunlight hit their faces as the bank doors swung shut. The billionaire squeezed his wife's hand. "Diner?" She laughed. "Only if we pay in coins." The diner was the kind of place they hadn't visited in years: cracked vinyl booths, the smell of coffee that had been brewing too long, a jukebox in the corner playing old hits. The billionaire's wife slid into their usual spot by the window, the same one they'd claimed a decade ago when they were scraping together loose change for pancakes. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag reading Diane shuffled over, not recognizing them. "What'll it be?" she asked, chewing gum. The billionaire opened his mouth, but his wife spoke first. "2 coffees. And the chocolate stack, extra syrup." That made him pause. "You hate chocolate pancakes." She grinned. "I know. But you love them." It was such a small thing, but it hit him like a punch to the chest. After all these years, she still remembered. Meanwhile, back at the bank, the manager was having the worst day of his career. News of the billionaire's abrupt departure had already leaked, and his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters. Corporate. Even the mayor's office. But the real problem stood in front of him, the teller, still clutching that single coin like it might burn him. "I didn't know," the teller whispered. "That's not the point," the manager snapped, then lowered his voice as customers pretended not to eavesdrop. "You mocked a customer over coins. Do you have any idea how many people keep their life savings in jars and coffee cans? What if that had been some grandma's rent money?" The teller stared at the floor. A woman in line, an older lady in a faded floral dress, cleared her throat. "Excuse me? I'd like to close my account." The manager's stomach dropped. "Ma'am, please." She placed a Ziploc bag of pennies on the counter. "And I'd like these deposited first." One by one, other customers began murmuring. A construction worker in dusty boots pulled out a roll of crumpled singles. A college student dumped her tip jar onto the counter. The message was clear: we're not billionaires. But we matter too. At the diner, the billionaire watched his wife stir sugar into her coffee, the way she always did, 3 slow circles to the left, 1 to the right. An old habit. "You planned this," he said suddenly. She sipped her coffee, eyes twinkling over the rim. "Planned what?" "The coins. Picking that bank. Letting that kid humiliate you." He shook his head. "You wanted me to see how they treat people." She didn't deny it. Just nudged the syrup toward him. "Remember our first date here? You were so nervous you put salt in your coffee instead of sugar." He groaned. "I thought you'd forgotten that." "Never." Her smile faded slightly. "And I never forgot how the bank turned us down for that small business loan. Said we weren't worth the risk." The pieces clicked. This wasn't just about a rude teller, it was about every door that had been slammed in their faces years ago. The billionaire pulled out his phone and typed a single sentence: "By that bank." His assistant replied instantly, "Which one?" He texted back, "The one that's about to lose all its customers." The teller's break room. The young teller sat alone, turning the worn coin over in his hands. The door creaked open. It was Diane, the waitress from the diner, still in her uniform. "Hey," she said softly. "Mom texted me what happened." His head jerked up. "You know them?" Diane slid into the chair across from him. "That billionaire's wife? She used to babysit me. Paid my mom in laundry quarters when we got evicted." She tapped the coin. "And that kept them alive when everyone else said they'd fail." The teller's throat tightened. "I messed up bad." "Yeah." Diane stood. "But they're not the kind of people who kick others when they're down." She nodded toward the diner across the street. Come eat their treat. Through the window, he could see the billionaire and his wife laughing over pancakes, not at him, not at the bank, just happy. Like none of this was about revenge. Like it was never about the money at all. The diner's bell jingled as the teller stepped inside, shoulders hunched like he expected to be thrown out. Diane nudged him toward the billionaire's booth with a muttered, "Just apologize and mean it." The billionaire's wife saw him first. Her smile didn't fade, if anything, it softened. "Sit," she said, sliding the syrup toward the empty seat. "They make the best chocolate pancakes here." The teller's hands trembled as he gripped the coin. "I don't deserve." "Kid," the billionaire cut in, "if we only helped people who deserved it, we'd still be eating ramen in that freezing apartment." He flipped a pancake onto a spare plate. "Eat. Then talk." The same employees stood stiffly under a new banner, First Step Bank, where every dollar has a story. The billionaire had not only bought it, he'd gutted its policies. No more minimum balances. No fees for small deposits. And a glass display by the entrance, where that single worn coin now sat on velvet with a plaque. The first dollar that started it all. Yours could be next. The manager, now demoted to head teller after the billionaire discovered his history of rejecting low-income applicants, adjusted his tie nervously. "What's the catch?" The billionaire's wife handed him a stack of blank loan applications. "We're approving everyone today. Even the risks." Inside, Diane stood at a brand new teller window. Her uniform was crisp, her name tag shiny. The teller who'd mocked the coins, now her assistant, whispered, "You've never worked in finance." Diane grinned, recalling the billionaire's words when he'd offered her the job, "You knew the value of that coin before any of us. That's all the experience you need." She rang the bell at her station. Next. The first customer. The elderly woman from the floral dress, clutching her bag of pennies. On the rooftop. The billionaire's wife leaned against the railing, watching the line snake around the block. "Think it'll work?" He handed her a coffee, sugar, 3 stirs left, 1 right. "Remember what you told me? Next time." He nodded toward the street. "This is their next time." Down below, a young couple walked in holding a baby and a mason jar of dimes. The teller who'd once rolled his eyes at coins now knelt to greet them. "Let's see what you've got." The bank's doors had been open for less than an hour when the young couple with the baby hesitated at Diane's counter. The father, his work boots still dusty from a morning shift, set down the mason jar of dimes with a nervous thud. We need a loan," he said, bouncing the baby on his hip. "Just $500 to fix our car. I can get more hours if." Diane didn't reach for the forms. Instead, she plucked a single dime from the jar and held it up to the light. "Tell me about this one." The couple blinked. "What?" "That's the rule here now," Diane said, grinning. "Every coin's got a story. This dime's first." The mother laughed, incredulous. "It's from the laundromat. I found it stuck in the machine after our first date." She pointed to another. "That one's from the parking meter at the hospital when our son was born." Diane slid the loan approval across the counter. "Approved. And your rate's 0%. The father's eyes welled up. "How?" From the balcony above, the billionaire's wife whispered to her husband, "That's why you hired her, isn't it?" He nodded. "Money's easy. Knowing its worth? That's rare." Meanwhile, the demoted manager made a fatal mistake. Fuming in his new teller role, he intercepted a shabbily dressed man depositing a paycheck. "You'll need to maintain a $500 minimum," he lied, slipping back into old habits. Diane's voice cut through like a whip. "Wrong." She marched over, yanked the bank's new policy manual from under the counter, and flipped it open to a highlighted page, "No minimums." No fabricated fees. The billionaire, watching from the security feed in his office, picked up the phone. Fire him. Today. But his wife pressed end call. Wait. Let's see what he does next. The test came at 3:02 p.m. The ex-manager stormed into the vault, swiped a stack of cash, and bolted for the door, only to freeze mid-step. Blocking the exit was the teller who'd once mocked coins, arms crossed. Really? This is your move? Behind him stood two cops, and Diane, holding up her phone with the security footage already queued. The billionaire's wife sighed. Some people never learn. Her husband pressed a button, locking all the doors remotely. But now everyone else will. That night, over takeout in the bank's lobby, Diane spun the stolen cash on the table like a fidget spinner. So what's your story with this place? Why buy a bank just to give loans to broke folks? The billionaire's wife unwrapped egg rolls. We got rejected here 12 years ago. The manager said our dream was too small. Her husband chuckled. Joke's on him. That rejection made us work harder. He nodded at Diane. Your turn. Why'd you take the job? Diane's grin faded. Because my mom died of cancer 2 years ago. Her last words? I wish I'd gotten to see you be somebody. She flicked the stolen cash away. Today, some kid called me ma'am instead of hey, waitress. Felt like a start. The room got quiet. Then the billionaire's wife reached into her purse and placed the original coin in Diane's palm. Then you should keep this. Every CEO needs a reminder of where they started. Diane's breath hitched. Wait, CEO? The billionaire tossed her the keys to the bank. Starting Monday. We've got other projects. Diane sat alone in the bank's vault after hours, the original coin resting in her palm. The weight of it, of everything, hit her all at once. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was the CEO of a bank that now served people like her mom, like the couple with the jar of dimes. A knock startled her. The teller, the one who'd mocked the coins, stood awkwardly in the doorway, holding 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need this, he said, handing her one. She took it, surprised. You're not quitting? He shook his head. I finally get it. Money's not about the amount. It's about what it does. Diane smiled and flipped the coin to him. Then you're promoted. Effective now. The billionaire and his wife stood on stage, but not as the stars of the show. They were handing the mic to Diane, to the young couple whose repaired car had turned into a thriving food truck, to the elderly woman who'd opened the bank's first no-fee savings account. The billionaire's wife squeezed her husband's hand as Diane announced their flagship program, the Coin Project. Bring us any coin, Diane declared to the crowd. Tell us its story. If it's your last dollar, we'll match it with a grant. If it's your lucky quarter, we'll help you invest it. A little girl in the front row tugged her mother's sleeve. Even pennies? The billionaire knelt to her eye level. Especially pennies. Epilogue, the rooftop at sunset. The original coin was back where it belonged, in the billionaire's wife's pocket, though she'd made a replica for the bank's display. Her husband wrapped an arm around her. Happy? She watched Diane below, laughing with customers. You know what's funny? That teller was right about one thing. He raised an eyebrow. She pulled out the coin. This was just pocket change. She flipped it, caught it, and pressed it into his hand. Until someone believed it could be more. The billionaire turned it over, remembering cold nights and empty cupboards. Then he slid it back to her with a grin. Keep it. We might need it for the next dream. And as the sun dipped below the skyline, the coin, like the people who'd carried it, was ready for whatever came next.